Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots. Bootlickers, just Nestle, Sergeant Bassels. I'm a useful idiot, and I want to talk about a report that came out that lists 10 countries in the Middle East and going over towards Eurasia that have received American foreign aid in the last 60 years, so basically since World War II. So it does encompass a great deal of time, but the numbers are still very impressive. For example, Iran is on this list, and they received $13 billion in aid from the U.S. And I have to assume that is pretty much during the reign of the puppet government installed by the U.S. under the Shah, which was relatively short-lived. But still, they're on this list. And this list will say a lot to anyone who looks at it because of the nature of the regimes in all of these countries. And the irony that they should receive billions of dollars from U.S. taxpayers and the United States government over these last 60 years. So I'm going to go over this list of these countries and the amounts that they've received in the last 60 years. Afghanistan, $50 billion. Bahrain, $538 million. Egypt, $114 billion. Iran, $13 billion. Iraq, $60 billion. Lebanon, $3.4 billion. Libya, $1.5 billion. Pakistan, $52 billion. Syria, $2.2 billion. Yemen, $2.1 billion. And one of the things this tells me is, first of all, you look at all the countries involved on the vanguard, supposedly, of the war on terrorism. You have Pakistan, and you have Iraq, and you have Afghanistan having these high amounts, around 50 to 60 billion. And that's nation building. And that's been an investment, obviously, that's been wasted, particularly because in all those countries, Pakistan, Iraq, and Afghanistan, a lot of that money has been pocketed by corrupt officials, as has been established quite well recently. So then we have these countries like Bahrain, and a very rich country, but completely sustained by a U.S. presence there in the Fifth Fleet. Egypt is number 2 after Israel in that region for receiving aid, $114 billion in aid. And over that period, the last 60 years, half of that has been military aid. And while I'm at it, I want to make sure that people understand that this is a total for these 10 countries of terrorist regimes and countries that sponsor or support terrorism. The total comes to $300 billion, and that's not including Israel. So including Israel to the list, there's another $185 billion since the end of World War II. So now we're approaching $485 billion. And then you throw in Jordan. Jordan isn't on the original list of 10 countries in this study. And they received $676 million in aid. So we're basically looking at about $500 billion invested in foreign aid to all these countries in the Middle East since 1945, the end of World War II. And there's people who support the idea of foreign aid point out the fact that it's only 1% of the budget of the United States. But of course that masks a lot of the actual and hidden and eventual costs of these sort of programs. Not to mention the fact that we have to look at a list like this and ask ourselves, what have we gotten for our investment? That's the proposal in the research that was done in this article that brings up these numbers about all this foreign aid. What have we gotten for our investment? We haven't gotten any more security, and we certainly haven't gotten any more stability in the region. And for me, another lesson that points out is, once again, that the wheels of war are greased with money. The wheels of war are greased with greed. To say that these wars are dominated by religion, the people who are the jihadis, the Islamic extremists, they are the The puppets, they are the useful idiots that are being used by these corrupt regimes in all these countries that are siphoning off all this U.S. foreign aid to the top and to their cronies. Look at that list again: Afghanistan, Bahrain, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Libya, Pakistan, Syria, Yemen. You're kidding yourself. You don't think most of that foreign aid ended up in the pockets of the people running those countries. And this is nothing new. This is the same tactic we have used all over Africa. We've been supporting brutal regimes, ruthless, corrupt governments all over Africa for the last 20, 30 years. And so this template is nothing new. But like I say, once you add Israel, there's another $200 billion. So $500 billion. So think about that, American citizens. $500 billion well spent on the Middle East over the last 60 years. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.